San Antonio, Texas, a city known for its rich culture, historic landmarks, and vibrant neighborhoods. But behind the Alamo and the Riverwalk lies a darker history, a brutal and ongoing struggle for power, respect, and survival. For decades, San Antonio has been the battleground for some of the most violent and deadly gang wars in the state. From the 1970s to the present day, rival crews have turned the streets into war zones, where bullets fly, alliances shift, and the price of betrayal is death. What began as turf disputes over street corners and local drug trade quickly escalated into full-scale conflicts involving powerful prison gangs like the Texas Mexican Mafia, Barrio Azteca, and Tango Blast. These organizations reached beyond prison walls, using San Antonio as a key hub in the drug trafficking pipeline from Mexico to the rest of the U.S. Caught in the crossfire are not only gang members, but entire communities, generations, lost to violence, incarceration, and fear. In this documentary, we delve into the roots of San Antonio's gang wars, the key players, the bloody feuds, and the city's desperate struggle to break the cycle. This is the story of a city at war with itself. Number 4. Red versus Blue South, Norteños versus Sureños in San Antonio. In the heart of Texas, far from the California streets where it began, a war of color, pride, and territory is being fought. San Antonio, a city known for its deep cultural roots and historic architecture, is now a front line in a gang conflict born hundreds of miles away between Norteños and Sureños. These aren't just street thugs. They are part of a violent and complex underworld where loyalty is everything and disrespect can mean death. This is the story of the ongoing war between local Norteño and Sureño affiliates in San Antonio. The rivalry between Norteños and Sureños traces back to the California prison system in the 1960s. Norteños, marked by the color red and the number 14, representing the letter N for Nuestra Familia, rose from Northern California. Sureños, marked by blue and the number 13 for the letter M and the Mexican Mafia, came from the South. This civil war within the Hispanic prison population spilled onto the streets and eventually spread far beyond California's borders. By the early 2000s, it reached San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio was already no stranger to gang activity, home to local sets of Bloods, Crips, Mexican Mafia, and Tango Blast. But around the early 2000s, California transplants, prison parolees, and young recruits began claiming Norteño and Sureño identity. Neighborhoods on the west and south sides saw graffiti tagged with 14th, Norte, or NS, while others bore Sur 13, M13, and Sureño Treche. It didn't take long before tensions escalated. What started as posturing, bandanas, tattoos, and street corners soon turned into shootouts, ambushes, and retaliation. The violence became regular and personal. In neighborhoods like Five Palms, Marbach, Eastwood, and Denver Heights, Norteño and Sureño affiliates began fighting for turf. These were often younger gang members, teenagers, and men in their early 20s, acting out decades of hatred passed down through prison tales and street loyalty. Drive-bys, stabbings, and even executions in alleyways and parks made headlines, though many cases were never solved. Police identified some cliques as subsets of national organizations, others as independent San Antonio-born sets adopting Norteño or Sureño identity without direct prison ties. The lines blurred, but the bullets were real. The feud intensified behind bars. In Bexar County Jail and Texas Department of Criminal Justice, TDCJ units, Norteños and Sureños clashed violently, especially in mixed dorms where politics couldn't be avoided. The Sureños often aligned with the Mexican Mafia inside, while Norteños were frequently isolated or allied with Texas Chicano Brotherhood, or even black and white gangs depending on the unit. Kites, prison letters, and coded phone calls orchestrated hits, green lights, and instructions to carry out street-level violence. What happened in lockup didn't stay there. It spilled out onto the streets of San Antonio. In recent years, the battlefield has gone digital. Local Norteño and Sureño members now use Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook to claim sets, diss rivals, and post masked threats. Music, particularly regional rap and narco trap, has become a recruitment tool. Gang members embed threats in lyrics, rep their hood on camera, and stir up real-life beef with viral clout. Shootings have been live-streamed, enemies are identified through hashtags, and young recruits, some just 13 or 14 years old, are caught up in a war they barely understand but fully participate in. Despite federal RICO cases, local gang injunctions, and targeted policing, the Norteño-Sureño rivalry continues. In San Antonio, it's more than California politics. It's become embedded in local culture. Schools, apartment complexes, even corner stores are forced to navigate the tension. Families bury young sons, police recover shells, and communities live in fear. For now, there's no truce, no treaty, just an ongoing war, passed down, enforced, and constantly fueled by a cycle of pride, pain, and revenge. A war wearing red and blue, in the heart of Texas. Number 3. The border bleeds north. Barrio Azteca versus local dealers, San Antonio, mid-2000s. San Antonio, Texas, a city of missions, military bases, and Mexican heritage. But in the mid-2000s, the Alamo city witnessed a gang conflict tied to a far bloodier war just across the border. The Mexican drug war was spilling north, and with it came one of the most feared criminal groups in the Southwest, Barrio Azteca. Their rise in San Antonio sparked a brutal showdown with small-time hustlers, corner crews, and independent dealers who refused to play by cartel rules. This is the story of the Barrio Azteca versus local dealers gang war. Founded in the Texas prison system in 1986, Barrio Azteca grew out of El Paso and Ciudad Juarez. A hybrid gang blending American prison culture with Mexican cartel ruthlessness, Barrio Azteca pledged loyalty to the Juarez cartel, becoming their enforcers on both sides of the border. By the early 2000s, as pressure increased along border towns, members began spreading into Texas cities, including San Antonio, seeking fresh ground and new income. Their mission was clear: take over the local drug trade, impose taxes, and eliminate opposition. Unlike traditional San Antonio gangs rooted in local neighborhoods, Barrio Azteca came with structure, discipline, and military-style tactics. Members, many fresh out of Texas prisons, brought orders from the border, expand distribution for Juarez product, tax the streets, and crush resistance. They operated in Southside and Westside neighborhoods, areas already saturated with local dealers who weren't affiliated with any prison gang or cartel. These independent crews weren't used to answering to anyone. But now they had a choice: join, pay tribute, or die. By 2005, violence exploded. Local dealers were being targeted in their own neighborhoods. Drive-bys, home invasions, and daylight shootings increased sharply. In one notorious case, a known independent meth dealer was gunned down outside a car wash near Zarzamora Street. Days later, 2 suspected Barrio Azteca affiliates were found executed on the Eastside. Rumored retaliation. This wasn't random crime. It was strategic terror, Barrio Azteca enforcing control through fear. Law enforcement began to see the pattern. This was no street beef. It was a cartel-driven turf war. What fueled the war was product and power. Barrio Azteca was trafficking high-purity Mexican meth, heroin, and cocaine directly from Ciudad Juarez through West Texas corridors into San Antonio. Their goal? To take over local distribution by force or by partnership. But small-time dealers, many with roots in local gangs like the Westside Bloods or independent Latino sets, weren't interested in giving up turf. The result? A dirty war fought in alleys, trap houses, and prison yards. Some independents aligned with rival gangs like Tango Blast for protection. Others tried to disappear. Most didn't survive. In 2006, the DEA, FBI, and San Antonio Police Department launched joint operations targeting Barrio Azteca cells. Undercover buys, wiretaps, and informants helped build federal cases. In one major bust, agents seized over 15 kilos of heroin, hundreds of firearms, and arrested a dozen members linked to murders and extortion. But Barrio Azteca was hard to kill. Even behind bars, they continued to coordinate through kites, coded calls, and corrupt staff. The gang's hybrid prison cartel structure made them one of the most resilient and dangerous groups in Texas. By the end of the decade, San Antonio's drug landscape had changed. Many independent dealers had vanished, either absorbed, killed, or imprisoned. Barrio Azteca remained a force in South Texas, though their dominance in San Antonio was never total. The gang war they unleashed left a lasting scar, dozens dead, communities shattered, and a warning to anyone who thought they could stay independent in a cartel-connected world. Today, echoes of that conflict remain in prison blocks, DEA case files, and unmarked graves along the border. In the mid-2000s, the border didn't just move north, it brought war with it. Number 2. Red versus Blue, the Westside Bloods and Eastside Crips of San Antonio. San Antonio, Texas, known for its rich culture, military bases, and historic landmarks. But beneath the tourist-friendly image lies a history few talk about. In the 1990s and early 2000s, parts of the city became battlegrounds in a war of colors, red versus blue. On the west side, the Bloods. On the east side, the Crips. This is the story of a violent turf war that reshaped San Antonio's streets. The seeds of gang culture in San Antonio were planted in the 1980s as Los Angeles gang influence spread eastward. Young people in lower-income areas of San Antonio, disconnected from opportunity, began mimicking what they saw on TV and in their own neighborhoods. Crip sets formed in the east, Blood sets in the west. By the early 1990s, the city's gang problem was no longer just a local issue. It had grown into a full-fledged conflict. The Eastside Crips consolidated around neighborhoods like Denver Heights, Wheatley Courts, and areas near Martin Luther King Drive. They formed tight crews, sets like the Denver Heights Crips and Wheatley Posse, claiming territory block by block. On the other side of town, the Westside Bloods organized in areas like Loma Park, Zarzamora, and Guadalupe Street. Sets like Loma Park Bloods and Westside Piru established strongholds. Each side pushed drugs, guarded turf, and viewed the other as a mortal threat. Drive-bys, ambushes, and retaliation shootings became common. In 1993, a 17-year-old boy wearing red was gunned down on the east side, allegedly mistaken for a Blood. Weeks later, a Crip-affiliated teen was shot, leaving a corner store on the west side. These weren't isolated incidents. They were part of a dangerous tit-for-tat cycle that engulfed entire communities. By 1995, San Antonio police launched aggressive anti-gang initiatives. The gang detail unit was expanded, surveillance increased, and arrests skyrocketed. But for many, jail time only sharpened gang loyalty. Inside Bexar County Jail and Texas Department of Criminal Justice units like Briscoe and Dominguez, gang politics intensified. Crips and Bloods who once roamed the streets now ran influence from inside prison walls. Innocent families were often caught in the crossfire. A 9-year-old girl was killed by a stray bullet in 1998 during a gang shootout on the west side. Her death sparked protests and prayer vigils, but little changed. Community leaders began stepping in, launching youth centers, conflict mediation programs, and gang outreach in both East and West San Antonio. One group, Second Chance Outreach, worked directly with active gang members, trying to pull them off the streets. Their message: there's more to life than red or blue. By the early 2000s, technology and culture shifted the dynamic. Cell phone surveillance, federal RICO charges, and increased prison sentences started to hit gang hierarchies hard. Social media emerged as a new battleground, where rival sets posted threats and claimed hits, often leading to quick retaliation. Still, violent crime rates linked to gangs began to slowly decline by the mid-2000s. More arrests, better community policing, and increased economic development in some neighborhoods helped ease the worst of the war. Today, echoes of the Bloods versus Crips conflict still exist in San Antonio. Some younger sets have moved from color-based alliances to more hybrid crews focused on money, music, and reputation. Others still cling to old-school codes, territory, honor, and revenge. But for many in the communities torn apart by the 1990s gang war, the memories remain vivid. Lost sons, broken families, forgotten lives. The story of the Westside Bloods and Eastside Crips is not just about violence. It's about cycles of poverty, pride, and pain. Number 1. Inside the war, the Mexican Mafia vs. Tango Orejon in San Antonio. San Antonio, Texas, a city steeped in culture, history, and tradition. But in the shadows of the Riverwalk and the Alamo, a far more dangerous legacy unfolds. Since the early 2000s, the streets and prisons of San Antonio have become a battlefield in a brutal and ongoing war between two powerful Latino prison gangs, the Mexican Mafia, also known as La M, and Tango Orejon, a local faction of the statewide Tango Blast network. This is their story. The Mexican Mafia rose to power in Texas prisons in the 1980s and 1990s, enforcing a brutal code of discipline and loyalty. With deep ties to cartels, street-level drug dealing, and extortion operations, they came to dominate Hispanic inmates and extend their reach beyond prison walls. But in the early 2000s, a new force emerged, Tango Orejon. Based out of San Antonio, Orejon, Spanish for Big Ear, was part of the Tango Blast network, a loosely organized group that rejected the Mexican Mafia's control. Tango members, or tangoteros, didn't believe in paying taxes to La M. They wore San Antonio Spurs gear and flashed the 210 to represent their city, openly defying one of the most feared prison gangs in the Southwest. The spark that lit the war was simple: money and control. The Mexican Mafia demanded a street tax, quota, from all drug dealers and hustlers, even those affiliated with Tango Orejon. But the Tangos refused. They weren't about that structure. They believed in free world rules. No taxes, no politics, no green light unless it's personal. La M saw it as mutiny. San Antonio became a zone of silent warfare. Drive-bys, drug house burnings, and late-night ambushes in alleys and parks became part of a violent pattern, each side sending a message. Inside prisons like Dominguez, Connolly, and Beto, the war grew more intense. Mexican Mafia members enforced a strict code, one that included discipline, checking paperwork, and carrying out hits. Tango Orejon, in contrast, was younger, faster-growing, and often outnumbered La M in numbers, especially in lower security units. But the Mexican Mafia had something the Tangos didn't: hierarchy and coordination. Several violent incidents occurred inside Texas Department of Criminal Justice units, where Tango members were jumped, stabbed, or greenlit for disrespecting La M. In response, Tangos formed protective circles, often rolling deep and refusing to back down. The battle wasn't limited to prison. On the streets of San Antonio, particularly the west and south sides, cliques affiliated with both groups fought for turf. In neighborhoods like Harlandale, South Cross, and Loma Park, shootings, robberies, and retaliatory killings spiked throughout the 2000s and 2010s. The Mexican Mafia aimed to control the heroin and meth trade. Tango Orejon set up shop with independent suppliers and protected their turf with ruthless efficiency. It became a Cold War, one defined not just by violence, but by silence. In these neighborhoods, no one talks. Retribution is real. As the violence escalated, the the feds stepped in. Multiple RICO indictments were handed down in the 2000s and 2000s. Dozens of Mexican Mafia members in San Antonio were arrested in sweeping federal operations, some facing life for murder, drug trafficking, and organized crime. Tango Orejon, less centralized, made fewer headlines. But they weren't invisible. Tangos were hit with federal time for meth distribution and weapons charges, often tied to cartel-linked product moving through Laredo and the Rio Grande Valley. Still, despite major busts, both groups remain active. New recruits replace the fallen. The game doesn't stop. Today, the war continues, quieter, more calculated, but just as real. The Mexican Mafia still holds sway in Texas prisons. Tango Orejon dominates the numbers game. And in San Antonio, the battle lines remain blurry, crossing neighborhoods, prisons, and generations. Two gangs, one city, and a war without end. If you found this documentary insightful, subscribe for more real stories from the underworld. Let us know in the comments. Who really controls San Antonio's streets?